Good morning everybody and welcome back to another weekly recap. In the weekly recap I like to go over any news related to the Oldschool Runescape community this week. Now today finally we have received the new Revenant Boss, the Revenant Maledictus. This will be a new wilderness boss located in the Revenant Cave. On top of that there's also even some other changes to the wilderness. As always I'm also going to be covering anything else interesting in the Oldschool Runescape community this week. Hope you guys enjoy. As always, if you do, always appreciate a like in the video. Thanks again, and let's get started. So this week, something new has risen from the depths of the wilderness. Meet the Revenant Maledictus. Now for those who don't know, this is the new Revenant Boss. Now the Revenant Boss is a stronger version of any of the Revenants and will have increased loot when you kill it, and also providing a buff to your Revenant killing endeavors. So now, when you're in the Wilderness Cave, every Revenant that you kill has a cumulative chance based on its combat level to spawn the Revenant Maledictus. So by killing a higher level Revenant, you're more likely to spawn the Maledictus, but over time the chance will get so high that it'll spawn or will be forced to spawn. For example, if it's like a 1 in 10,000 chance of spawning the Maledictus, totally made up number, and you go ahead and kill a Revenant Demon, that'll make it 98 out of 10,000. If another player then goes and kills a Cyclops, that's now 98 plus 82 out of 1,000. And then if someone kills a Dragon, that'd be, well, 98 plus 82 plus 135. As you can see, over time, the chance will add up and it will spawn. When the Maledictus spawns, the chance will be reset. Now also to avoid a long wait, when the server updates, the cumulative chance will be set to a random number. So on reset, it could spawn pretty much at any time. Once it's spawned, it'll then be set to 0 and continue as normal. So what are you going to get for killing the Revenant Boss? Well, it's going to kind of be similar to a superior Slayer creature. When you kill Maledictus, it is going to run the Revenant Dragon's loot table 3 times. Now additionally, one of these rolls is reserved for dropping a guaranteed lower tier ancient artifact, so either an ancient emblem or an ancient totem. The ancient emblem being a guaranteed 500k and the ancient totem being a guaranteed 1 mil. That means at the very least you're going to be getting 500k for killing the Revenant Maledictus, but also that you're going to get a pretty high chance of dropping some other regular Revenant loot. Now on top of the loot roll, a certain number of players who did the most damage to Maledictus will also receive a buff that they're calling Faerell's Surge. Now Faerell's Surge will only get applied to you if you have an Amulet of Avarice. So while this does technically work for Ironman, you need to get the Amulet of Avarice first, so that will be a bit tricky. Now this buff will be visible to other players as there's going to be a unique skull above your head. When you have it, you're going to receive a 50% damage and accuracy boost for all combat styles while fighting the Revenants. And this buff will last for 30 minutes. Now if at any point you remove your Amulet of Avarice, you are going to lose the buff. And on top of that, world hopping will reduce the duration by 1 minute, which is kind of an interesting mechanic. Now there is actually another way to acquire the buff. Besides killing the boss, you can also kill someone else who has it and take it from them. Now it seems like when you murder someone for it, the timer for the buff is not going to be reset. So if they only had 10 minutes left on their timer, for example, you will only acquire the buff with 10 minutes remaining. Now on top of that, we actually have a pretty big change to Wilderness Slayer. Now to start us off here, a few new task-only creatures have been added to the Wilderness Slayer cave. So now in the cave we have Abyssal Demons, Dust Devils, Jellies, and Necreals. So some very strong experience tasks, which will all have a weighting of 3, so a bit unlikely. Now one really interesting thing they've changed is now enemies in the Wilderness Slayer cave will have a chance of dropping items from a new loot table, which is going to contain blighted items, as well as items from Justine's LMS reward shop. Now this shop contains a bunch of different things including blighted ice axe, rune arrows, dragonstone bolts, crystal weapon seeds. I mean, it's a bit of a vague statement. What is going to be dropped from here? I assume mostly the resource items. They've also made a few other changes just to the existing creatures in the Wilderness Cave. Some tasks have been reduced, so the number of fire giants, hill giants, and bloodvelds have been reduced. On top of that, they've also added in more bloodveld spawns to the Wilderness Godwars dungeon, which I believe is the only place to kill them in the wilderness. And there's also more bear spawns as well. So just general quality of life changes to make Wilderness Slayer a bit more appealing, and it looks like also maybe more rewarding. So that is it for all of the main changes, but there are a few smaller ones at the bottom here. Now firstly, the Dagenhai rope set is now recognized as Zamorakian items. So in the God Wars dungeon, you can use those to align with Zamorak. And now interestingly, they've added in a more rigorous tracking for Ironman players who are luring the Cowfight Queen. And additionally, if combat against her halts for more than 5 minutes, she'll reset her health completely so that her next opponent has a fresh boss fight. RIP to Limpert. Now that's it for all of the main game changes, although there's a few changes to the Shattered Leagues relic. Now first up, we have an update on the point distribution. So to be in Dragon rank, you now need 21,220 points, and to squeak in Iron rank, you need, 465. Now as the league has been live for 2 weeks now, and there was a substantial amount of changes to mechanics last week, this week it's mainly just smaller bug fixes and stuff like that. So smaller fixes like Arclight now working with Twin Strikes, Catch of the Day working with Personal Banker, and auto-completed quests now working as intended. And that is pretty much it for this week's content update. Now starting today, there is a poll in progress. That is the poll for the Guardians of the Rift. We did cover that last week, although there's been a few amendments and small changes to the original proposal. Now one of the first changes is that the pet that would be awarded from the Guardians of the Rift has been changed. Now instead of offering another Guardian pet, they have instead changed the poll to offer an Abyssal themed pet with the option of adding in a transmog for the existing Rift Guardian, so they wouldn't really be doubling up on that. Now another change is the Ring of Elements was to teleport you to a similar location as the Dueling Ring, but they've changed it to move the teleport now north of the Fire Altar, to give it a greater distinction from the Ring of Dueling, and to double as an easier access to a few clue locations. Now another really interesting image that they've released is concerning the True Blood Altar. Now for those who don't know, it's actually located in Maria Ditch in the laboratories. Right now it's unusable, but here's a map of how you would access it. So normally you'd run in through Maria Ditch in the bottom. Here's where you'd kill the Blood Velds, but if you go a bit further north, there is the True Blood Altar. So this is an example of how far you'd have to run. Now the benefit of using the True Blood Altar is you'd be able to use Day Alt Essence, and you wouldn't have to make them on Arceus. Now a couple of days ago, we got the Gilnor Gazette for January, and in it there's a couple of really interesting pieces of proposed content that are just simply high-level concepts, and there's always just a ton of interesting information in the Gazette, so I thought we would cover it today. Now first up here, we have the project status update. Now this is fairly similar to what we saw last time. So since then, we now know that the Land of the Goblins is coming out the first week of February, or maybe the second week. That will be our next new piece of content, most likely. Now after that, between February and April, they're going to be working on the Beneath Cursed Sands quest, with the Tombs of Amascut leading up all the way to potentially June. And honestly, it could come out in the summer. That seems to be kind of when major pieces of content come out anyway. So beyond that, the next tangible piece of content is probably going to be the Guardians of the Rift, which will come out sometime between now and March. So let's talk a little bit about Beneath Cursed Sands. Now, this is going to be the next quest in the Desert storyline and is going to be a precursor to the new raid, Tombs of Amascut. And they've actually finally released some concept art and a few preliminary screenshots of what the quest is going to look like, and I'm really excited for this. One thing that Jagex has really consistently done well, and honestly, I think the newer quests are better than most of the old ones. So they're asking for your feedback on some of the images, particularly the chat heads, because as we all know, people have pretty particular tastes when it comes to chat heads. Now we are due to get a new blog on the Tombs of Amascut rewards because there was a fair bit of feedback regarding the old ones, which they're going to be sharing with us very soon, so hopefully sometime in February. Now they also touch on the Deadman rerun, so they were aiming for a January beta, but their work on anti-DDoS protection has been impacted due to some vulnerabilities with Java and exploits with Log4j. So that has been delayed a bit, but they're not going to rerun it until they're confident that they can do a smooth event. Now one thing we haven't gotten in a while is a content poll, like poll 75, poll 74. Well, we're working on poll 76, and they're going to be talking about clues, pets, and combat achievements, clans, and more. Now I'm really excited about clues. I assume they're talking about specifically the Elite Clue Scroll, but maybe they have some other changes on deck as well. So there is a quick update on the content we're going to be getting in the near future. Now one thing I always love about these gazettes are the ideation ideas and kind of the early stages for content creation. Now it does seem like these things could be far away, but keep in mind that Guardians of the Rift, that was an ideation idea that was put forward in the Gazette about a year ago, and now it's being pulled and very likely will enter the game. So here are a few of the ideation ideas. Now first up here we have an update to the pirate storyline that is titled Marsh Island. Now Marsh Island would be an expansion to the pirate storyline that would add in a brand new island. This would be home to the followers of Saradomin, but an ancient evil has started to rear its head, the necromancers following an ancient god. Your task would be to help the followers of Saradomin remove the necromancers and restore the town. The reward for doing this would be a weapon that would have slots for 3 charms. You'd gain 1 for completing the quest, and the rest by exploring and completing tasks on the island. The charms themselves would have a range of benefits from helping you out in your island activities to combat buffs versus the undead. So kind of a self-contained gameplay loop. I'd imagine it kind of like the Forthos dungeon, hopefully, because that place is awesome. Now next up here we have an idea for a canoe expansion. Now this canoe expansion would go down the River Doyne and would pass through Castle Wars, the Tree Gnome Village, Ardoyne, in the south of Baxtorian Falls. I love this idea because I find in the early game, traversing these locations can be quite annoying. I think this would actually be more used potentially than the Lumbridge canoe. Just a great idea though. I love thematic transportation. Yes, teleports are nice, but I mean, driving a canoe, that's way cooler. Now next up here we have the Corrupted Rat. Now the Corrupted Rat would be a free-to-play boss which can be killed for a new poisoned weapon. The Corrupted Rat would be located in the Varrock sewers where they have started to mutate. Free-to-play rat boss, I mean, I've heard this before, I think it's a cool idea. Free-to-play content is just kind of exciting as well. Now finally here we have musical instruments. Now I'm not really certain about this one. I like the idea, essentially be able to acquire musical instruments that would let you play and be heard by those around you. So the Grand Exchange could be an absolute fiesta, more than it is already. Obviously there has to be a way to turn that off, or be able to turn down the volume separately. I think it's a fun idea, but man, that could get annoying pretty quickly. So anyway guys, that's going to be it for the Old School RuneScape recap. Hope you guys enjoyed it as always. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week. Now before I go here, I want to give a huge thank you to all of my members over on YouTube. Thank you so much to Cesarium OSRS, The Hybrid, Alejandra, Sejuani's Flail, and Kush Patel for all being subscribed at the Dragon tier. Thank you guys so much, really appreciate it. Also a giant thank you to Ryan Shady, Mexos, Base Titch, NDM001, and YoYoSub89 for all subscribing at the Runite tier. Really means a lot. As always, if you are looking for another way to support the channel, becoming a YouTube member is a great way to support me directly. You will be immortalized in all of my future videos, get access to a custom role in my Discord server, and my video release schedule. Thanks again guys, and I will see you next time.